She's 56 years old now, the giant horseshoe lady on the banks of wind-blown Lake Erie. Cleveland Stadium, the longtime home of the Cleveland Browns. A capacity 80,000 fans. Fans today who have been described as desperately hungry for a winner. It's been a full generation of time since the Browns won their last NFL title in 1964. In fact, that win does represent the last major championship that these Cleveland fans have cheered in any sport. And they believe they're on their way to Pasadena. Hello, everyone. Dick Enberg with Merlin Olsen. Welcome to our AFC Championship game. We talked about the quarterbacks earlier, and I could just feel your courses, your blood coursing through your veins. Your juices were flowing.
Dick, I may have to body slam Greasy a little later to get in the mood of things. And, of course, the defenses love to intimidate young quarterbacks. These two young quarterbacks are not intimidated.
How are they alike? And I guess they're really different, aren't they?
Well, the contrasts are there, and you look at them, their strengths are different. One, you can see the strength, the other one you can't. In Elway, it's his strong arm, his quick feet, his quick release, and of course his mobility. Now the other one is hidden. Kosar, his strength is his intelligence, his leadership, and he's a fierce competitor. Different styles, but they both are winners.
And of course, you'll be examining both their play today and give us further insights. On the defensive side, that's where you'll be looking. How will they defend these two quarterbacks?
Dick, the contrasts are just as obvious on defense. It's strength against strength. Elway is matched up against a very physical Cleveland defense. They line up, play you man-to-man, bump and run, and they're not going to try and fool you. What you see is what you get there. Kosar, on the other hand, is against Denver's very sophisticated, and I think the most sophisticated defense in the NFL. Always moving, slanting, stunning, changing their defenses. Kosar will have to use his brain to beat that defense.
So that's a nice, easy way to look at this game. You've got a cerebral quarterback in Kosar against a very thoughtful defense, and you've got a powerful physical quarterback against a physical defensive team in Elway matched against the Cleveland defense. And the Cleveland Browns will get the ball first. They won the toss, and deep to return is the cube. 142-pound Gerald McNeil, number 89. Floating out of bounds, or will it? No, it stays in bounds, and that's Herman Fontenot who takes it out near the 20-yard line. Bernie Kosar, just 23 years old. He has Ernest Biner just activated yesterday. Kevin Mack as his running backs. Reggie Langhorne, Webster Slaughter, a couple of youngsters are the wideouts, and the veteran Ozzie Newsome, the all-time pass catcher. Cleveland history at tight end. Ricky Bolden, just activated, will play at left tackle with Paul Fearon moving inside at left guard. Mike Baba is the center, and Dan Fike, underrated guard, and Cody Rison at right tackle. Rison, a Pro Bowler, will be matched up often against Rulon Jones, the top pass rusher of the Broncos. First down from just inside the 20. And it's Kevin Mack. Lewis Wright coming up from the corner to make the tackle for Denver's Orange Crush defense. And here are the Broncos defensively. Rulon Jones on his way to the Pro Bowl, the leading sack man for Denver again this year with 13.5 a record. Greg Cregan and Andre Townsend on the front three. Jim Ryan, Carl Mecklenburg, another Pro Bowler. Ricky Hundley, leading tackler, and Tom Jackson, the veteran, are the linebackers. Wright and Harden at the corners. Dennis Smith and Steve Foley, the Denver safeties. Kosar now in a pass situation, 2nd and 9. Brian Brennan in motion, but he stays on the ground to Kevin Mack, and Lewis Wright is there again for Denver. Short yardage. Last week in beating the Jets in double overtime, Bernie Kosar establishing new records except for the tie with Dan Fouts' completion. 64 attempts. Merlin, I don't think Bob Greasy threw that many in all of his playoff career.
He wanted, that's a season for Greasy.
3rd and 8. Kosar's first pass. Almost intercepted. Oh my. Number 48, Randy Robbins, had a hand on it for Denver. It was intended for Clarence Weathers, and Robbins close to 6.
You get a feeling for the kind of pressure they would like to put on inside. And look what that pressure did to Kosar. He tries to get the quick flick right there into Weathers, but that very close to a touchdown for Denver. There was nobody between Robbins and the goal line.
Gerald Wilhite back for Denver as Jeff Gossett, never had a punt blocked, will deliver from around his own 10-yard line. Bad kick. We may see a lot of those today in the wind and weather, and it'll roll dead around the 42-yard line of the Denver Broncos. So Cleveland 3 downs and a punt, and here comes John Elway and the Denver Broncos after that 37-yard punt. Sammy Winder, their leading rusher. Gerald Wilhite is their leading receiver. Vance Johnson, he caught the big pass last week to beat New England, and Steve Watson, the veteran, are the wide receivers. Joey Hackett at tight end. The offensive line, and that's nicked and bruised. Dave Studdard, remember he left the game against the Patriots last week. Keith Bishop, Billy Bryant, Mark Cooper for the injured Paul Howard, knee surgery after the Patriot game, and Ken Lanier. Elway comes out throwing, incomplete to Orson Mobley. Well, Mobley in a double tight end set. Screen incomplete. Sammy Winder was the intended receiver. Now they accept the penalty, and it'll be 2nd and 20. And Schottenheimer would go in and visit with Joel Collier, the defensive coordinator of the Broncos. His interest in the game renewed. Look at now the crowd becomes a factor for Elway in that shotgun. 2nd and 20. And the quick feed of Elway looking for a block. Chip Banks there to run him out of bounds at the 35. Here's the defense. The Cleveland Browns, a young team, both sides of the ball. Reggie Camp, Bob Golick, he's going to the Pro Bowl, the nose tackle, and Carl Hairston, Big Daddy. Chip Banks, Eddie Johnson, Anthony Griggs, and Clay Matthews could be the strength of that defense, although those two corners, Dan Fouts says they've been the best set in the NFL for a couple of years. The rest of the world's starting to find out that Minifield and Dixon, who can play man coverage, are really tough, and the safety men are Ellis and Rockins. Underneath to Wilhite, and Wilhite diving out of bounds near the 50. He'll be short of the first down by a couple. 16 yards on the play. Chris Rockins replaced Don Rogers. Rogers, of course, that tragic death last summer.
Elway looking for field position here, hoping for a first down, but more importantly wants to pick up yardage. Gets it to Wilhite. And just one more comment on Elway. We worried about his mobility. Looked like a minute ago when he scrambled to the sideline that ankle is not really going to bother him that much today.
Snowing harder now than any time today. Mike Horan, who kicked magnificently last week against New England, and Gerald McNeil is at the 10. I'm not sure how many times McNeil has had to field a left-footed punt. There's a different action on the ball, and now with the wind, Horan. See the wind just blow that one to the far side of the field, and they'll mark it at the 14-yard line in the snow in Cleveland. Now movement before the snap. That'll cost Cleveland 5.
Tackle, 5 yards.
Cody Rison a little too quick.
The nerves are an important part of this game. You can't approach this game without tremendous excitement, and the waiting has been very difficult on both teams. I think you'll see a few of those kinds of miscues here early.
Herman Fontenot, a good pass receiver, joins Mack in the backfield. Ozzie Newsome has it. No, did not maintain possession is the call. Lewis Wright on the coverage, number 20. Newsome playing all season long, Merlin, with injury suffered in that first game against the Bears.
No question about it. And right now, both offensive teams having to battle this violent wind, which is circulating through this stadium as well as the snow. Defensively, I love this kind of day. You knew that the skill guys, the motor guys, were going to have trouble handling that ball, catching it and throwing it. That made our job defensively a lot easier.
Broncos looking for the pass. From his goal line. And Kosar, self-advertised as not being a ballet dancer, but quick enough feet to elude that pressure in the pocket from Freddie Gilbert.
You talk to the Browns about protecting Kosar, and they talk about a secure pocket. You see them setting short, trying to force everything to the outside. Cody Rison, number 63, working on Mecklenburg, doing a good job there. But they want to keep that secure pocket for Kosar to work out of.
On the scramble, Kosar picked up about 3. Complete. Reggie Langhorne, number 88. And it's going to be a first down for Cleveland, the first of the game. Langhorne from Elizabeth City State also sent John Walton and Jethro Pugh, that school, to the NFL. First down on a 13-yard play. Play action. And another Cleveland first down. This time it's Fontenot. Kevin Mack hit by Tony Lilly, number 22, after a gain of nearly 5.
If you talk to offensive, defensive coordinators around the league who've had to work against this Browns team, they'll tell you the one thing that really is different about them is that they will very often give you the same plays on first and second down that other teams would run on third down and long yardage. They may be in there with 3 or 4 wide receivers. They've got 3 in there right now on a second and mid-range down, what should be a normal down.
Kevin Mack finally corralled at the Denver 42.
That's the trap you can get into if you begin to think pass. They'll come right back out of a passing formation, give the ball to a Kevin Mack, and he's into the secondary before you can get a hand on him. Number 22, Tony Lilly. 20, Louis Wright there, but that's a big gain.
Mack again to the 38-yard line. Kevin Mack played his college ball at Clemson, 2 years in the USFL with the Los Angeles Express. He and Ernest Biner both were 1,000-yard rushers last year. And what a transformation of this Cleveland offense in one season.
Well, Dick, if you'd made an extended trip out of the country and came back after being gone through this season to look at this Cleveland Brown team, you'd say, wait a minute, are these my Browns? My Browns were running. Where are they? This looks like San Diego or San Francisco.
They've gone from a run team to a pass team very impressively in one season under offensive coordinator Lindy Infante. On 2nd and 7, Kosar almost intercepted by Louis Wright as it went through the fingertips of Herman Fontenot. And Ricky Hundley was shagging Bernie Kosar.
The little fake into the line and then breaking outside. Fontenot comes out of the backfield, but he's a wide receiver basically. The ball right through his hands, and I think it may have bounced before it got to Louis Wright. But that's the kind of thing that's going to happen so many times today. That ball is hard and cold and slick, and even though that's not a hard pass, it's hard to handle.
3rd and 7. 4 wide receivers. Wide open, Fontenot.
Bernie Kosar looking left, looking right, making the right choice. A play designed to get right up the middle. They did a beautiful job with it.
24 yards on this play. And that is the strength of Kosar reading the defense, although he's just a baby by NFL terms, and coming up with the right choice. A 24-yard gain. 1st down near the Denver 15. Mack gets 5 more. Mack, a couple of yards shy of a 1st down. Rulon Jones, 75 in the thick of things. Mark Mosley, the veteran, former Washington Redskin kicker, number 3 you saw, getting ready on the sidelines. Brian Brennan is short of the 1st down, and a flag is down. And Tony Lilly is the man arguing with the official.
This Cleveland offense uses a lot of patterns that, if they're not pick patterns, would look like pick patterns. And I'm sure that that's what Lilly was screaming about. But they're going to be called for a holding penalty, and Lilly is angry.
Holding. Defense, number 20. Half the distance to the goal. 1st down.
It's 1st and goal at the 4-yard line.
Curtis Weathers inside on Louis Wright there. You saw the bumping taking place there as they're trying to shield the outside receivers, kind of block things up in there.
Marty Schottenheimer goes with 2 running backs here at 1st and goal, Piner and Mack. Wide open, Ozzie Newsome. And that particular play and that particular corner of the field has to bring back terrible memories for Cleveland fans. The mistake by the lake 5 years ago was in that same spot in the end zone. Harry Holt, not Newsome, the other tight end, was the man who almost had the score.
Harry Holt is usually in there as a blocker. Maybe you can tell why as he dropped that ball. And this Denver defense, a trademark of theirs over the years, has been their ability to hold people out of the end zone, to make the goal line stand. Let's see how they do with their feet almost in the end zone here.
Kevin Mack fumbles. And Cleveland recovers. Travis Tucker, 87, apparently was the man who picked up the loose ball. It'll be a 2-yard loss.
Looked like he had the football comfortably, and when he was trying to put it away, no, there's a shoulder right there. Louis Wright, number 20, putting the shoulder in, and 5 Broncos there. None of them got the ball, unfortunately, or they could have had the turnover and taken it back the opposite direction.
3rd and goal. 3 wide receivers to the left, 1 to the right. Now Brennan will balance it. Fontenot. Touchdown. Fontenot, who caught only 1 touchdown pass all year, although he was is the #2 receiver for Kozar with 47 catches. Gives the Browns the first score as he beat Tony Lilly one-on-one.
Lindy Infante's scheme is to get the good isolation, to get the matchup. He got the one-on-one, Fontenot on Tony Lilly, and Lilly was there but missed the tackle.
Jeff Gossett to hold for Mosley, who just does get that one through. Hard to believe he's only 23. Mosley kicks it. Bell and Lang are deep, kicking into the wind. Very high but short at the 11. Ken Bell. Hammered by D.D. Hoggard.
Dick, let's go back and take a look at the touchdown. Both wide receivers, this one in motion, is going to come to the inside. Fontenot is here. He's going to go in motion and is the outlet. Bernie will hit him with a little swing pass to the outside. Both wide receivers causes a traffic problem inside. Bernie looks downfield. Fontenot was the second leading receiver on the Browns team as a running back.
You can put your defensive players in position. That's the case here. You've got a man right there on Fontenot, but if you can't make the tackle, you can't stop the offense.
Fontenot, former star for LSU, on the return. The Broncos guilty of a block below the waist, and so they are penalized back to the 10-yard line. So Denver down 7-0 with 5 minutes, 10 seconds left in the first quarter. We'll begin deep in the Bronco end of the field. Bobby Mitchell is in at tight end, a couple of tight ends in for Elway. Sammy Winder gets a good block and picks up nearly 5. And for Dixon, Anthony Griggs in on the tackle.
The strength of this defense really on the outside. Those great corners who come up and bump you so aggressively, and 2 outstanding outside linebackers in Banks and Matthews, both who are very, very physical. They both are smart players. It's difficult to get them out of position.
With a bullet, and Steve Watson able not only to catch the ball but retain possession when he was rocked by Rockins.
You saw the congratulations from the defense. They respect a wide receiver who's not afraid to come inside and catch the ball and take that shot. I respect him too. Watson, by the way, one of the receivers not wearing gloves today. You see his hands in the pouch on the sideline.
Denver's first down at the 30. Winder, who ran for over 100 yards in the New England win last Sunday in Denver, picks up nearly 6 before Eddie Johnson can make the stop.
On that last play, they brought Sewell in motion from a flanker position to block up inside. They do a lot of that, using that motion man as a double team on the inside.
Call that a wham block.
A little wham blocking on the inside.
They did it again. Winder, however, picks only a couple this time, short of the first down. A reminder that later in our game, we'll be selecting the Budweiser Most Valuable Player. Shotgun and noise. Flag down. And Vance Johnson has the first down at the 44 from Duke. The legal procedure will cost the Broncos the first down. And the noise could have been a factor.
Reeves is angry. Don Shula talked about the silent count. Elway is using a silent count out of the shotgun. He will point to the man he wants to come in motion and then lift his foot to set the timing and action for the center, and there is no count. The center snaps the ball on a predetermined delay.
Undoubtedly with third and long, 3rd and 8, he'll go into a shotgun again. We'll be able to see that.
Again, watch Elway. If he wants a man in motion, he points to the man in motion to start him and then lifts his right foot to set the sequence for the center going. There's the motion. And then the ball.
In trouble, he throws it away. Oh, he was being pressured by Reggie Camp and Sam Clancy, and the Browns will get the ball. Mike Horan ready to punt, and Dan Reeves can't tell quite what he's angry about.
He thought that was a late hit on his quarterback.
It was a little late. McNeil will return a punt and a kickoff for a touchdown this year. A beautiful spiral by Horan to the 20. 30. Fumbles. And I believe Cleveland recovered again. 47-yard punt. 16-yard return, and Cleveland recovers the fumble, the second committed by the Browns. They committed 2 last week and recovered both.
Very intense on the sideline. And
Kevin Mack looking for a little running room and gets to the 39. 2nd and 7. Running behind the block of Ernest Biner. Rulon Jones and Tom Jackson made the tackle. Tom Jackson, number 57 for Denver. The oldest linebacker in the NFL, just a couple of days older than Brad Van Pelt of Cleveland. But Jackson a player, and some are speculating whether this will be his last game or last season.
it's a homecoming for him. Got 35 tickets, but Rich Karlis got 50. So he's not the champ.
Play action. Intercepted by Hundley. And Hundley still on his feet. And all the way to the Cleveland 35-yard line. Denver with a turnover.
At a time when things were beginning to feel very comfortable for the Cleveland Browns, Bernie Kosar makes an uncharacteristic mistake. He was intercepted twice last week and said he didn't want to lose that game thinking about those interceptions. Well, right now, Ricky Hundley goes up in front of Slaughter to pull that ball down and give the Broncos a chance to get themselves back on track.
And it was the pressure from Rulon Jones that forced the hurried throw by Kosar. Wilhite hit in the backfield by Chip Banks.
Last week, the Jets started out trying to run over on Clay Matthews. In the second half, they reversed their philosophy and tried to go at Banks. You can see right here that Banks is not an easy man to run the football on. They call him Rock Dog. He got a body that looks like it was chiseled out of granite.
Ricky Hundley, who had only 1 interception all season. This will be the final play of the first quarter. Screen to Winder. He just can't get away from Banks. Back to back. Chip Banks. The end of the first quarter at Cleveland Stadium for the AFC Championship. And the hometown Browns celebrate a 7-0 lead. Thanks to Chip Banks, Denver loses 6 on the first 2 downs. Elway in trouble. Throws it completely across the field to Vance Johnson to the 35-yard line. A gain of about 2 yards.
And that's the kind of pass that will cause most coaches to grab their hearts going all the way back across the field. But Elway does that repeatedly during the game. using his mobility to get extra time, and he looks all the way back across. A good job of getting away from Banks, using his feet. But look at that football all the way across the field.
It's a 6-yard gain that takes Denver right back to where they started after the Hundley interception to 4th and 10. They're playing into the wind, so no field goal attempt by Carlos.
Let's see if they just try and draw the Cleveland offense off sides in this situation.
Well, 5 yards isn't going to do them too much good. They need 10 for a first down.
Quick kick by Elway again. He did this last week too.
Doesn't get a kind roll. Actually, it bounces out of bounds at the 16-yard line. Kosar sets up at the 17. Kevin Mack protecting the football and squeezing out a couple.
One thing that the Broncos are going to have to do is to work against this size disadvantage. Look at the average height and weight of Denver's defensive line, 6'4", 257. Now look at the other side. The offensive line for the Browns, 6'6", 278. Now Denver uses their quickness, and they'll slant, try and get inside. But I think what you're going to see now is Cleveland trying to use that physical advantage to batter them.
Kosar looking left and then throwing to Brennan. And the little receiver from Boston College, knocked out of bounds by Louis Wright, has a first down.
You got to be tough in a game like this. It hurts a lot more when they're whacking you and it's cold. Louis Wright wants to remind Brennan that he's in the vicinity. He does it, but Brennan hangs on to the football and picks up the first down.
Look at Kosar, almost a side saddle approach under center. Intercepted by Jim Ryan. And Ryan might go all the way. Out of bounds.
Cody Rison
inside the 10-yard line. Kosar, his receivers covered. He didn't want to throw it and tried to force it in.
Uncharacteristic of Kosar. The one thing that he has done during this season is to make good choices. But a great play by Ryan, who twisted his body around from an awkward position to take it away from 82 Ozzie Newsome. Watch 63, Cody Rison. There's the pressure that forced the errant pass right at the end. That's Greg Cragen, number 71, from his nose tackle position.
First and goal at the 9. Winder for 3. Let's go back to Kosar's interceptions. 2 of them here in the first half. This is the man who threw less interceptions in terms of percentage of any passer in the National Football League. As you see, 10 and 531 attempts. Had a couple last week and 2 more today.
We talked about mind games, and Joe Collier, I'm sure, is going to try and bait that's Gary Danielson talking to Kosar, trying to cool him down. But Collier will try and bait the quarterback by showing him one thing and giving him another.
Gerald Wilhite out of bounds at the 2. 3rd and goal. Hanford Dixon made the play. The All-Pro cornerback, number 29 for Cleveland. Ball is just inside the 2-yard line.
Elway calling a timeout. Either confused or did not like what he could see out there.
A timeout with 12 minutes and 17 seconds left in the first half.
Denver has a 3rd down and 2. Let's see if they can get it into the end zone.
Steve Sewell can't get in. Ray Ellis, 24. That dog pound down there, bad to the bone indeed. The defense of the Browns stopping Denver twice after interceptions, and now the Broncos will go for the field goal.
A very big play for the Browns defense as they were able to match up physically on the outside. A run out of a passing formation did not yield the touchdown. Carlos now will look for 3.
Extra point range, 19-yard field goal. And the Broncos have their first points of the game. But an interception at the 35 of Cleveland, another interception and start at the Cleveland 9 has netted Denver only 3 points.
Steve Sewell in motion, picks the football up outside. Hanford Dixon there, but it's Ray Ellis. They picked him up after the injury to Al Gross, who comes over to knock him out of bounds.
12 minutes left in the half, 7-3 Cleveland. But if you're a Browns fan and you know your team has fumbled twice and intercepted twice in the half and still lead, then you're in good shape. Carlos into the wind. McNeil. Well, the little guy really hits with a pop, doesn't he? He's out to the 37-yard line. Cleveland at the 37. Kevin Mack. Fumble.
I think Denver has
And Denver has recovered at the 37.
Did they blow a whistle?
Ken Woodard, 52, just in case, is going to go into the end zone.
They're going to ask if there's a whistle, and I think there was a whistle. Was there a whistle? If there's not, it's a touchdown.
Well, there was contact with Woodard.
The ball was fumbled, was recovered by Denver. He's down by contact. Denver's ball, 1st and 10.
So another turnover for the Broncos. 3 now in less than 10 minutes.
And the possibility of 2 others that they were able to recover, fumbles that they were able to recover. That ball carried loosely there, just a slight bump on Kevin Mack, and it's 52, Ken Woodard. He is in contact with the Cleveland player on the ground, and of course that is a dead ball at that point.
So with 11 minutes and 41 seconds, Ken Woodard, who played his high school ball up the other side of the lake in Detroit, Michigan, able to slide in. He's down on the ground as he picks up the ball, and
he's in contact as he is on the ground. There's no question about that one.
And it'll be Denver's ball at the 37-yard line.
Now, if he picked up that ball without being touched or without touching a Cleveland player, that's a touchdown, because nobody got him before he got into the end zone.
So instant replay confirming the call. So late in the first quarter, Kosar intercepted by Hundley, took it to the Cleveland 35. Then Kosar intercepted by Ryan, took it to the Cleveland 9. They got a field goal, and now Woodard recovering Mack's fumble at the 37. Fake reverse. Elway on that bad ankle. Elway all the way to the 4-yard line. And had he been 100%, that'd have been a touchdown. All the coverage was deep and away from the left side of the field. And there's the mobility of Elway paying off for Denver. 33 yards.
I asked Marty Schottenheimer what concerned him most about this game. He said the fact that Elway can take a nothing play and turn it into a big play.
So Gerald Wilhite, coached by Elway on the run, throw a block, and Elway really struggling with that ankle, ducking out of bounds at the 4.
He has it heavily taped, Dick, and that might be one of the problems. Taped on the outside of the shoe as well as on the ankle itself.
Gene Lang joins Winder in the backfield. And it's Lang up the middle to the 1.
this is where the coordination of that offensive line is so critical. And we mentioned the loss of Paul Howard, the veteran. Mark Cooper, number 63, in there in his place. And Lanier and Billy Bryant, the center and the tackle, respectively. No Cooper, but it still takes some adjustment with a new face in there.
A yard away from the lead are the Broncos. Winder over the top, did not get in.
Dick, I'll say it again. The Broncos have yet to be able to establish the fact that they can run the football. Cleveland has done it earlier in the game. Their mistakes have been their problem, but the Broncos have yet to establish the running game.
All right, let's guess now with Dan Reeves, both of you gentlemen. On 3rd and 2, he sent Sewell on a sweep, didn't work. He's got 3rd and goal at the 1.5. What happens now? Well, here's the answer. Wide open is Sewell, but he can't get to it. Elway hit by Clay Matthews.
Dick, if John Elway is healthy, that's a touchdown. He simply can't make those quick foot movements to get him out of there. Sewell is going to find himself open in the end zone after that block as he breaks there, but there was just no chance for Elway as Matthews was in there doubling him. Watch number 57, who will come from the right-hand side, and John just can't use that quickness to get himself out of there.
So another, no, they're not going for the field goal. 4th from the 1.5 yards. Gerald Wilhite, touchdown. Wilhite, a gymnast of sorts, able to struggle with a header and get in the end zone. And they caught the Browns. I'm not sure they had 11 men on the field.
Brad Van Pelt, number 50, ran off just before the snap, just barely got off the field. Here comes Wilhite over the top of 37, Rockins, and just barely forcing that ball across the line to get himself into the end zone. The gamble pays off for Dan Reeves and the Broncos.
Rich Karlis adds the extra point. With 10.5 minutes left in the first half, the Broncos taking advantage of Cleveland miscues, and a tough 4th and goal at the 1 take the lead. Let's see how many men were on the field in that touchdown play.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There were only 10 men on the field. As you were right, the other Brown ran off in confusion.
Brad Van Pelt left the field. And Wilhite, that's where that extra man could have come in handy. And Marty Schottenheimer, meanwhile, on the sidelines, realizing they were in trouble, tried to get a timeout, but with the noise, was not heard, and no one looked to see. Wilhite in the end zone with a kiss for Denver. For the first time, it's the Broncos who lead, and Karlis will kick it off to McNeil. Ball is blown off the tee. Karlis will be kicking into the wind. Denver unable to convert that first interception, but a field goal and a 4th and 1 touchdown against a 10-man defense has given the Broncos the lead. That's almost a spiral kickoff. McNeil. Good return across the 30-yard line. The key to that last touchdown, of course, after the interception, was John Elway's mobility.
Elway can't find the open man, but he can find some open field. Gets in behind Wilhite, who blocks right there on Eddie Johnson. Johnson playing on an injured knee, by the way, but look at Elway stumble there. John said he could push. He said the ankle is tender. I can push off on it, but he said I'm going to have it heavily taped, and that will limit the mobility in that ankle.
Kevin Mack. He rumbles for a first down out in the desert of California. In the flat to Biner. And Biner to the 47-yard line. Dennis Smith trying to strip the ball away on the tackle. 2nd and 6 for Kosar. Kevin Mack. First down at the 45 of Denver. Rulon Jones chasing the play with a tackle. And Kosar picking at Denver's defense short.
Taking what the defense gives you. So important to be patient. What great hustle by number 75, Rulon Jones. You see him on the right-hand side of your picture. That pass thrown 20 yards to the outside. But who is there to make the tackle? Number 75, Rulon Jones.
That's why Jones from Utah State is on his way to another Pro Bowl. Mack again. Not much trucking there as Darren Como and Steve Foley collaborate on the stop. This telecast is presented by authority of the National Football League, intended for the private use of our audience. Any rebroadcast or other use of this telecast without the express written consent of the Cleveland Browns and the National Football League is prohibited.
A chance to look into Kosar's eyes as he tries to read. Whoops. We got a back in the way.
Going down the field and well covered was Webster Slaughter, the rookie from San Diego State. Randy Robbins, number 48, was right there.
We'll see a lot of Robbins today. Dennis Smith has been injured and has been in and out of this game. Robbins played all of last week for him and is certainly an adequate replacement, although in losing, when you have Dennis Smith out of there, you lose such a big hitter in the run game. A more physical player than Robbins.
Now into the eyes of Kosar, 3rd and 10. Incomplete. Again looking for Slaughter at the 27. Steve Foley, the veteran from Tulane, on the coverage. Kosar's number is 50%. Most of the yardage coming on little short swings and dump-off passes. 1 touchdown, a 6-yard play to Fontenot, really made by Fontenot himself, and 2 interceptions. Gerald Wilhite back at the 10 for Denver. Gossett with the wind at his back this time. Fair catch at the 11-yard line. Winder slams to the 14, a gain of 3. Anthony Griggs, who started this year in the Eagles camp and then was traded to Cleveland for a number 8 draft. Marty Schottenheimer. At one time, the trivia question surrounding Marty when he was a player, a linebacker in the league, was who has the longest name in the NFL? 14 letters, Schottenheimer. Winder picking his way out across the 20, and he's going to be very close to a first down. In fact, one wagon commenting about Schottenheimer said, just think if he had founded this team, we'd be watching the Denver Broncos and the Cleveland Schottenheimers today instead of the Browns. I know Paul Brown is watching, and we send along that great leader of football players our best.
One of the largest tight ends in the league. Number 89, Orson Mobley, is going to come inside and lead that play, working on 53, Anthony Griggs, to help make some room. Again, using that man in motion as an extra blocker up into the line.
Third and less than a yard. And a first down for Gene Lang. We talked about his fresh legs last week against New England. You can just see the extra quickness that he brings to that backfield for Denver. Injured much of the year, but now 100% and quick.
Very important for Denver to get a running game established. They were not able to run well during the last part of the year, and last week in the first half against New England did not run well. They came back after Elway's injury in the second half of that game, dominated the line of scrimmage. It was perhaps the most important thing they did in the second half of that game.
They stay on the ground to Winder. And Winder breaking a tackle from Matthews, finally pushed out of bounds by Eddie Johnson. That was a lot of ground yardage for Denver, and as you said, Merlin, a real key to the victory over New England.
They'd only had one other 100-yard day from a back, and that was from Winder earlier in the year. And you can see the high premium that Dan Reeves, Mike Shanahan, the offensive coordinator, put on the running game. It has not gone well. They continue to run, knowing that they have to do it to control the line of scrimmage, keep the pressure off their quarterback.
Gain of about a half yard on that last play, so it's second and almost a full 10. They throw to Mobley. Woo. And coming up to meet him is Ray Ellis with his 196 pounds on Mobley's 256.
You saw where he went. He didn't go up high. He went down for the legs, and you can't blame him. That's like trying to hit a truck out on the freeway.
Mobley, he is a big vehicle.
The same kind of passes that we've seen the Cleveland Browns throw, and John Elway said before the game, I've got to be patient. I've got to be patient because they're going to take away my deep receivers.
3rd and 6. Through the hands of number 80, Mark Jackson. That would have been a first down out at the 45. Good protection for Elway.
Again, the difficulty of catching the ball on a day like today, but that's a pass that Jackson should have had. Elway getting a little extra time away from Clancy, 91. Has the man, has the ball in his hands over the linebacker. Went right through his hands, and I think hit him in the helmet.
4:30 left in this first half, and Cleveland will get the ball. Moran kicking well again today, even into the wind, and there's the ice cube, McNeil at the 29. This one shorter. McNeil at the 40. And ridden down at the 48 of the Denver Broncos. 32-yard kick and a dozen on the return.
About 3 weeks ago, they list his weight as 143. They said he was down to 137 pounds. Now, can you imagine 137 pounds? A low driving kick that gives McNeil time to get upfield. Steve Wilson, 45, will have a shot at him, but watch the acceleration as he gets out of there and around the corner. Wilson did a good job of adjusting and finally making the tackle.
There was a penalty on the play, and that will nullify that return by McNeil. They'll mark it back to the 35-yard line. So instead of starting in Denver's half of the field at the 48, they'll begin at the 35. In comes Bernie Kosar. We saw Vinny Testaverde, the Heisman Award winner, in the Fiesta Bowl. Testaverde is actually 2 weeks older than Kosar. Here's Kosar finishing his second year in the NFL. Ball incomplete. It bounced before it was caught by Fontenot.
And Kozar's not throwing the ball very well. They're really wobbly passes.
He's not, Dick, and you have to wonder, he has to have some nervousness today, but that's the one strength that it has seemed to jump out at you about Kozar, is the fact that he is so cool. He's such a laid-back kind of guy.
Penalty on the play.
There is no foul on the play.
As I said, no penalty on the play.
There is no penalty. Dick, we've talked about the differences in these two defensive teams as you watch that ball bounce into Fontenot's hands. One of the differences is that Collier's defensive scheme is a team defense. They try and beat you with the defense. They try and make you see things that aren't there. They try and make you think and hesitate. If they can do that, they can beat you.
Kevin Mack. It was his fumble that led to the Denver touchdown and the lead. 10-7 Broncos, with the snow starting to fall again and 4 minutes left in the opening half. On top to Weathers. What a throw to the 20-yard line.
Throwing what appeared to be a couple of bad passes earlier, it's Weathers getting the bump from 49 Dennis Smith. We mentioned Smith, who's been out with an injury, slowed down by the knee, and Weathers able to get off the line against that man-to-man coverage and do a great job of catching that football.
You see the number 20 on Weathers' helmet, tribute to Don Rogers, who is the starting safety man who died this past summer. Fontenot with a blocker. 5 yards, a play that seemed to be in slow motion. But what a throw by Kozar to Weathers. He just lofted that ball with all the moves you saw Weathers make, and yet when he turned to look, the ball was right there at full speed for him to catch.
They had a scare earlier this week. Weathers had partially dislocated his shoulder, and there was concern that he might not be able to play today. Well, he is here, and he just made a very big play for the Browns.
They're in field goal range. 2nd and 5. Wide open, Fontenot. At the 7-yard line, 1st and goal.
Again, they go to the outside to Fontenot. But watch Dennis Smith, 49, close ground from the inside. And we'd seen Fontenot beat a man one-on-one out there for a touchdown. He doesn't get away from Dennis Smith.
And there's the 2-minute warning as we close in on the first half, and the Browns trying to regain the lead. 1st and goal. Cleveland trails 10-7 with 2 minutes left, first half. Mack. Not much there. Jim Ryan again playing a big game. Ken Woodard, the other linebacker, assisting. Huntley was there also. Here comes Brennan, Biner, and Ozzie Newsome in for Cleveland, and Denver counters with 4 new defensive players.
It's not the players that go in you have to worry about. They use so many combinations that you almost have to look and see who comes out of there to have an idea of what they're going to keep. In this situation, it's one wide receiver and Fontenot and a tight end coming out, almost the same combination going in.
Biner and Slaughter to the left, Weathers to the right. And Mack up the middle to the 2-yard line. Gilbert and Lilly on the tackle, along with Simon Fletcher and Mark Mosley
hoping it's just for one, and Denver trying to stop Cleveland and make him kick a three.
This Browns offense spreads you out so far that they can run effectively in a passing situation. That's exactly what happens here. The Broncos just barely able to stop Mack on the 2-yard line. They'll have one more shot at it before they try the field goal, or maybe they might elect to gamble as Reeves did at the other end. Let's wait and see.
Kosar had to throw it away, and a flag goes with it.
He's called Rulon Jones for roughing the quarterback.
Is he doing that, or is he calling intentionally grounding the ball?
I saw Rulon grab his head.
No, he's calling it against Kosar.
Ah, okay. Rulon thought he'd been called for roughing the quarterback. The official has the option. If he just believes that ball is thrown to kill it, to kill the down, then he's going to throw the flag.
So he knew he had no one open and wasn't very clever about disguising that throw.
Keep that moving, and let's see. Well, we can see that Rulon Jones did bump into Kosar after the fact, but that not drawing the flag.
Here comes Mosley to try to tie it with 25 seconds left in the half. Lost it down on that penalty, so the kicking team on. Mosley, of course, missed a short one in overtime that could have beaten the Jets last week, and then got a second chance and connected. This one will be 29 yards. We've got a new game. Mosley has the advantage of the prevailing breeze that has not been the factor we thought it might. He skips it down to one of the up linemen, Mike Freeman. And he carries it out to the 40-41 yard line with 16 seconds left. Elway's got a chance for a couple of big plays and maybe a field goal chance for Denver.
Reeves is not afraid to gamble. You saw him go on 4th down close to the end zone.
You saw him raise 4 fingers, say 4 wide. So they're going to go with
probably a Hail Mary type pass, looking for a potential penalty or a potential catch downfield with still having time to throw the field or to kick the field goal.
Cleveland loosening their deep defense. They're back at the 45-yard line. And now Ellis moves 20 yards away from the line of scrimmage. Elway underneath. Clint Sampson ducking out of bounds at the 49 of Cleveland. That'll be a first down. Just over 10 yards on the play. They use 6 seconds. So there's 10 seconds left for Denver.
An option now to perhaps try and get another pattern to the sideline.
They have a couple of timeouts left, so they can even go down the middle and call a quick timeout.
It's sometimes difficult, though, Dick, to get that timeout called and get it stopped.
Going to replace the football. Elway with a new nugget. Down the middle, incomplete, right through the hands of Vance Johnson. So Jackson and Johnson have both dropped Elway passes, but in fairness to them, in this cold weather, the way Elway drills that ball, he really tests your dexterity.
We talked about that velocity maybe working against him, and as we get later in the day, it's going to get colder. That could continue to be a factor, maybe even be a greater factor late in the game. Elway with timeout because of the incompleted pass. 5 seconds on the clock.
And that is the end of the first half. Denver 10, Cleveland 10.
The Browns opting to take the win in the 4th quarter.
And for Denver, you don't want to be behind going into that fourth quarter. They must find some productivity offensively in this quarter. Ken Bell, boy, that ball playing tricks. And Bell is able to recover at the 8-yard line. And I'll tell you, that D.D. Hoggard can fly. He can flat out sprint. And he was down there in a hurry.
This ball looks like a knuckleball as it comes down. Bell tries to pick it up. He should have just covered that. He's lucky that that ball didn't get away as Hoggard went for the head, took him down.
He can run the 60 and 6 flat.
I believe it.
D.D. William Benjamin, thank you, Hoggard. And Elway starts in the hole. Sammy Winder for a couple. Eddie Johnson with a tackle. And that's the dog pound end of Cleveland Stadium, where they're really going to make it tough on Elway. They're barking in there. They're barking.
They are howling down there. It would appear that
on 2nd and 7. Wide open is Vance Johnson. What a move. He put a big leg move on Hanford Dixon, out of bounds at the 24, first down.
put a camera in John Elway's back pocket and watch him pick out an open Vance Johnson. And I think if Vance had stayed to the outside and just flown downfield, he might have been able to pick up a few more, but you're right. That was a classic. That's almost a basketball move.
16 yards on the play. Winder, as you saw them bring Mobley, the big tight end, in motion for that wham block. Bob Golick, number 79, submarining with a tackle. Golick, who grew up in the Cleveland area, on his way to the Pro Bowl. He's really a wonderful character, a linebacker cut by New England, found a home as a nose tackle. He said, if I weren't playing, I would be here as a fan, and you know what? I'd probably dye my beard orange. I'd be one of the guys in the pound. Flag down. Watson working against Minifield. And we'll see against whom the push was.
We might have an offensive interference. They're both pushing and shoving as they're nailing each other down on this offensive line of scrimmage, too. Clay Matthews at the bottom of that stick. A few words being exchanged. Wilhite.
Penalty is against Cleveland, apparently.
Matthews tried a knee right there on Wilhite.
Ooh.
And then tries to kick, stuttered.
Pass interference, defense, number 31, first down.
He's lucky an official wasn't on that. They'd have thrown him out of the game for that kind of thing.
You're talking about Matthews, not Minifield.
Talking about Clay Matthews. Matthews angry because he was held, and he was being held, but you don't kick at somebody and try and knee somebody for that.
There's 57. There's one kick there. And there was another also. First down at the 45, a 17-yard penalty. Winder. Boy, he was rocked. Chip Banks in on another tackle for the Cleveland Browns. And Eddie Johnson following it up.
You talked about Bob Golick on the inside clogging things up. We remember one of his first games here. He came here as a reject linebacker out of New England, 235 pounds. They put him in at nose tackle and said, give it a try. He just went in there and earned himself a job. Worked his way up to 250. I said, what do you remember about that? He said, Twinkies.
Ooh, Elway trouble. And there will not be grounding, although the fans want it. There was a receiver in the area. Clay Matthews taunting one of the Broncos again.
He's taunting Clarence Kay, number 88, downfield. Elway's mobility certainly affected more than I think we expected because of that ankle. He's not moving nearly as quickly. Noted for his quick feet. Not as quick as he has been in the past by far.
Third and between 8 and 9. Denver's only 1 for 7 on third down conversions.
Look out.
Sam Clancy, who did not play football at the University of Pittsburgh, was a basketball rebounder. In fact, he left the school as the all-time record holder, has the first sack of the game for Cleveland after the 9 they registered against the Jets last week. Slam bam, Sam Clancy. McNeil waiting for Horan's kick. And that one's going to go out of bounds at the 21-yard line. Elway's got good eyes, but none in the back of his helmet.
And he waits too long. 91. Sam Clancy from the backside. He gets better all the time. Levels Elway. Carl Hairston there to apply.
Kosar into the wind here in the third. And it figures they'll try to run it. Kevin Mack. And he has a first down.
Dick, when I talked to Cleveland's offense, I talked to Kosar, talked to Infante, talked to Marty Schottenheimer. Every one of them said the first thing we have to do on offense is know where Carl Mecklenburg is and control Mecklenburg. They have really done a good job of that here today. A high percentage of the time, they are audibling on the line of scrimmage, and they are taking the action away from Mecklenburg, not giving him a chance to make the big plays.
That was Paul Farron putting the block on Mecklenburg. A 13-yard gain. Fontenot to the 39-yard line. Dennis Smith with a tackle. Kosar wearing that number 19, and boy, you think about 19 in Cleveland if you're a baseball fan. Another pretty good thrower performed on this field. Bob Feller wore that number for the Cleveland Indians. Second and 4.5. Mack, who fumbled in the first half, protecting the football, and will be shy by about a yard of a first down. Well, the way they're marking it, it might be pretty close.
I think it's going to be a little shy, Dick. One of the things that the Browns have done today is to close up the gaps in their offensive line a little bit. Try and give Denver likes to work the corners. They like to work the angles. And by closing up those gaps and coming off aggressively, they've been able to catch a good piece of those offensive linemen, not let them slip through those gaps.
Almost wedge-like blocking, just straight ahead.
Like snow plows coming out.
Yeah, they're in tight on this 3rd and 1. Oh my, Tom Jackson shooting through to make the tackle. And that will be short of the first down as the veteran Jackson makes the play.
Tom Jackson has always been at his best in the big play, in the big games, and seems to find a way to make that kind of play. You see the line slanting again, and they found the gap. That's the kind of thing they like to do, the quick moves laterally to find an opening. Jackson just popped through an opening and nailed his man in the backfield.
Gerald Wilhite back at the 15. Gossett into the wind. Beautiful kick. Too good. And when we return, it'll be Denver in this 10-all tie starting from the 20-yard line. Denver from its 20. Winder. Good piece of running by Sammy Winder as it begins to snow once again. A pickup of about 7. Ray Ellis, who played at Ohio State, made the tackle. He was a valuable acquisition by Cleveland this year. In the first game of the season at Chicago, starting safety Al Gross went down and Ellis was available. The Eagles didn't want him, and he was just sitting there waiting for a phone call. And he's been not just a player, he's been a contributor.
He certainly has. Anthony Griggs, also one of Buddy's rejects, starting linebacker in there.
Mobley can't hang on, and a flag is down. That'll carry a first down for Denver.
Illegal contact, number 59 on the defense. 5 yards, first down.
Mike Johnson is 59.
Johnson, who will see some action for Eddie Johnson, number 51 at the bottom of the screen right there. And that's beyond the 5-yard zone, and I'm sure it's just illegal contact, but looked like he was run into rather than doing the running into.
5-yard penalty, first down.
Now they're going to say that Clarence Kay moved, but Clarence Kay is a tight end. He's entitled to move. I think that may go against the defense.
Reggie Camp, 96, charging through. Clarence Kay, those of you who were with us at the start know that Kay has been missing for over a month. The drug rehabilitation program, rejoining the club and activated yesterday. A blocker. He's signed up because they need his strength.
Defense, 5 yards.
You were right, Merlin.
The reason that Dan Reeves, one of the reasons that Reeves activated Kay, is that he wanted to be able to run effectively today. Even that activation has not helped them to dominate the line of scrimmage like they must if they're going to get the running game going.
First and 5. Well, Kay becomes the receiver and has a first down at the 44 on a 7-yard play. He's from Georgia, blocked for Herschel Walker with the Dogs.
I got to believe that the Broncos are very proud of the fact that he has done as well as he has over the last month. He wouldn't be here unless they were very confident of his progress.
It's tied at 10. 9.5 minutes left in the third quarter. A pump fake and the throw to Mobley. And had he caught it, he would not have been in bounds anyway. Chris Rockins, number 37 on the play. With a name like that, you should be a football player. Mobley, a baseball player throughout high school, in fact, was drafted by the Montreal Expos going up for that high fly, but unable to pull it down. Winder to the 50, where Anthony Griggs and Mike Johnson made the tackle. 5 yards on the play for Winder from Southern Mississippi.
Well, is it time for one of those trick plays we talked about?
No trick about that. Just stay warm.
That's a trick on a day like today.
Steve Sewell, who is involved in a lot of the gadget plays, is in the backfield with Elway. Throwing for Jackson, intercepted by Mark Harper. They say he was out of bounds.
Do you think they've got enough Cleveland players around that official? They want to give him a little help. They put Jackson man-to-man on the third wide receiver. In this case, it's Mark. They put Mark Jackson, that's Harper, man-to-man on Mark Jackson, and he covered him just in his pocket all the way to the sideline.
Let's see it from another angle. From that angle, it appeared his knees were down. From this angle,
one knee down and then a shoulder out of bounds. I think he's got to get both down, doesn't he? One knee or 2 feet. They might review that one. They are reviewing that one.
we've got another look.
It's 2 feet, but if he gets a knee down.
1, 2. He's got an interception from that angle, I believe.
After instant replay, look. The pass was intercepted by Cleveland. It's first down.
That was Cleveland owner Art Modell. In his box at the mezzanine level, Marty Schottenheimer's defense has the first turnover for Cleveland on a very fine play by Mark Harper.
Harper just absolutely climbing into the pocket of that receiver and then being there to take that football away from him.
Art Modell, 26 years, the owner of the Browns, looking for his first trip to a Super Bowl. Cleveland starts at the 31. And Kosar going for a big one. And overshoots Webster Slaughter with Mike Harden on the coverage. Well, that was a little piece of history. The first time in championship history in the National Football League that the instant replay has changed a decision. And Mark Harper will be part of that trivia from Alcorn State. I'll tell you what, those fellas know where the cameras are, don't they? Fontenot, good play by Steve Wilson, whose dad, Touchdown Tommy Wilson, used to battle with the Cleveland Browns of yore. His dad playing with the Los Angeles Rams. Steve dropping ball carrier for a loss of a yard. Ozzie Newsome, who has a consecutive string alive, well over 100, but has not caught a pass today, although those count only in regular season games anyway. But nevertheless, Ozzie has been quiet.
He's been playing hurt a good part of the year. He's a marvelous weapon. That hurts this Cleveland Brown offense.
3rd and 11. And Kosar had to throw it away. Webster Slaughter thought he was interfered with. I believe the official ruling that was not a catchable ball. Well, he was looking back at the ball, and that Slaughter had already slipped anyway. Oh, Denver's defense is tough, and at the midpoint of the 3rd quarter, tied at 10-all. Gossett to punt. Wilhite back for Denver. Wilhite takes a gamble and is down at the 30-yard line. 7 minutes and 18 seconds left in the 3rd quarter. And the Browns awarded the interception, could not move the ball. Now Elway on a draw and a winder. A gain of a couple. Chip Banks. He's had a big game defensively. Banks, number 56.
Reeves coming right out, trying to get something going with the running game, pounding and pounding at that Cleveland front, but can't find any holes in that front wall.
Like a fighter, he can't hit his opponent. Elway over the middle. Clarence Kay stabs it at the 47. A first down. Banks on the coverage, wondering how in the world did he pull that one down. 15 yards on the play.
You've got to believe that that's not his first target. In fact, let's watch his head. See where he's looking. He looked right first and then back to the left side. Sees the open man, Kay, and delivers him the football.
6 minutes remaining in the third period. Denver with a first down near midfield. Elway, less yards. Each man has been intercepted. Nothing distinctive about those stats. Winder, you know, he's not spectacular, but boy, you go back to that expression, bread and butter back. Winder, you get all he'll give you.
In order to get up inside, you've got to move that nose tackle. And they got Bob Golick out of there on that particular play and got some yardage. They have not been able to do that earlier in this game. They did it on that play.
Other than Elway's scramble, that's the longest run of the day, 7 yards. And 7 more and a first down. Clay Matthews made the tackle. Make that 9 yards on that carry.
Looking back inside, Winder will start up straight inside and then veer to the outside. And Sam Clancy is pulled inside by Studdard. A good block on the outside on the linebacker, Clay Matthews. And Winder has the first down.
At the Cleveland 37. Wilhite for a couple. Sam Clancy turned the play in, and Anthony Griggs made the stop.
One of the first people that Marty Schottenheimer added to his staff was Dave Adolph, the man he made his defensive coordinator. Marty's done a great job, I think, of delegating responsibilities. You see Adolph in the brown jacket there on the left. They love him here in Cleveland. He's done a great job with this defense.
Mobley close to another Denver first down. He's got it at the Cleveland 26-yard line, and a flag is down back where Elway threw the ball. And I believe we got roughing against Cleveland.
You don't want to get the extra penalty after the first down. Ball cleanly gone 2, 3, 4 steps.
Roughing the passer.
Mark Gastineau had a penalty last week late in the game that kept the Cleveland drive alive when they should have been punting, and that really was provoked some thank yous from the Cleveland Browns.
That just looked like carelessness to me, Dick. It looked like he just wasn't careful with where he was going. Didn't deliver a punishing blow, but you got to stay off that quarterback.
That marks it inside the 15-yard line. Winder again. He's been busy. Has a block. And rolled out of bounds at the 11-yard line by Chris Rockins. It appeared that Camp just kind of ran helmet to helmet on Elway.
He had plenty of time to adjust his course and get out of the way. Instead of doing it, watch him now, number 96, coming from the top of your screen. Notice how long after the throw, Elway just watching and standing there, and there's the shot. I think he could have stepped aside a couple of steps before.
Second down, 8. Winder. A simple play. Check that. Gene Lang made the catch. Lang had to turn completely around to make that catch and still keep his feet under him and make a pretty good gain out of it.
Elway reading the blitz. They were coming with an all-out blitz. He had to go to the outlet man. But watch the play you mentioned, Dick. The ball thrown by Elway. Lang goes around and then beats Mike Johnson, 59, for a couple of extra yards down the sideline.
Ball at the 9-yard line. They have to get inside the 4 for a first down. Wide open is Wilhite, and Johnson knocked it down. Mike Johnson almost intercepted.
And it looks like Wilhite may be hurt down in the end zone.
Elway was trying to get it to Wilhite, and when the ball was knocked down, the man defending may have cracked Wilhite.
Trainer Steve Antonopoulos out very quickly, and Wilhite is up off the ground. Here's the pass by Elway. And had that ball not been knocked down, it might well have been caught. Wilhite hurt last week. His shoulder is injured then, but it looks like he's grabbing his leg there.
Timeout. Denver in a field goal situation. Gerald Wilhite is okay. He will return. And now Rich Karlis will attempt a 27-yard field goal to give Denver the lead. Karlis, the barefooted kicker. Talk about cold feet on a freezing day. Karlis from an angle. And Denver leads 13-10. Officially a 26-yard field goal that culminates a drive that started back at the 30 of Denver.
Wilhite, but the spy right here, who is spying on Elway, knocked it down.
A man that's moving with Elway will mirror all of his moves, able to read Elway's eyes and get up and knock that ball down. A very big play.
Chip Banks has been the spy most of the game, but that particular play with a pass situation, Mike Johnson was the man who almost intercepted. And now Karlis will kick it off for Denver with 2 minutes and 50 seconds left in the third. He scuffed that one, and Fontenot takes it at the 17, 30, flag down, 45, all the way to the 50, but they're going to call it back. Illegal use of the hands against Cleveland at the 27-yard line will nullify what was an excellent return by Herman Fontenot, as Karlis actually hit the ground before he hit the ball with that bare foot. All right, your feelings. We're really, this thing is building this game into some nice drama with so much importance on it, and one play could break it either way. Your thoughts?
Dick, I have a sense that Denver has come back and done a better job on the line of scrimmage. They were able to get some good runs going here in this second half. But again, it was a Cleveland mistake that helped to set up those last points. And that's the story for Cleveland today. They have really played the better game of the two teams. They've made a lot of mistakes to keep Denver in this game.
The home field advantage is still with Cleveland, and the fans, they've got to do something to create the momentum back to themselves.
Well, the fans haven't quit. It's been a din from the very opening moments. Now Cleveland deep in its own end, and it's Kosar to Mack. They're starting with the penalty from the 17, so Mack picks up 3 or 4 on that first down carry. Browns, and you see how Kosar likes to use those backs. 9 receptions by running backs, where Denver, Elway, no bias. Wide receiver, running back, tight end. And Ozzie Newsome, the big target tight end for Cleveland, without a reception. 4 wide receivers in now for Cleveland. Slaughter to the 40. Carrying that shoulder awkwardly is Webster Slaughter after a gain of 20.
Quick pass. Kosar back. Does not waste any time at all. And Slaughter put a real fine move on it. Might have hurt his shoulder as he dipped down to catch his balance. footing a little bit treacherous. A lot of sand in that field out there.
That was his first catch of the day. 1:06 left, third quarter. Denver 13, Cleveland 10. There he is, the Wizard of Oz. No, it isn't. It's Langhorne, Reggie Langhorne. I thought at first it was Newsom. Langhorne, another first down at the 38, 22 yards.
Is he throwing it back to the quarterback? No, that's from the other side of the field. As you see, Langhorne breaking to the sideline, and a perfect strike again by Kosar. His accuracy very high on that play.
Into the wind with less than a minute left in the third quarter. Mack. Nothing there. Tom Jackson. Jim Ryan with a tackle.
Webster Slaughter, one of the key people. They're asking him about that shoulder. They obviously will not put him back into the ball game if he is seriously injured, but they need him. He is a very important part of that offensive game plan.
Brown's physicians talking with Slaughter. 2nd and 10. Kevin Mack has a first down for Cleveland at the Denver 27.
Words being exchanged between Ernest Biner and Louis Wright on that last play. But again, it's the running game that begins to sparkle for the Browns here. Something they did better than the Broncos were able to in the first half. Ernest Biner in as a blocker on this play, working on Louis Wright. And watch the action between those two. Now they come back and talk nose to nose right here at the end of the play. Hey, you want some more? Come and see me. I'll take it.
14 seconds left in the period. Mack again to the 20-yard line. Another good pickup on first down. 7 yards at the end of the third quarter. At Cleveland Stadium, watch Kosar give to Mack again. And he's got a first down. Steve Foley made the tackle, and Kevin Mack. And the tradition of these Cleveland Browns, always with great runners. That's Webster Slaughter. Dr. John Bergfeld examining that collarbone or the shoulder. Here's how he was injured.
I think it's when he goes down on that shoulder as he was tackled, and you see him come up holding that arm to his side.
First down at the 14. Mack sliding through for 3 or 4 yards. Carl Mecklenburg gets him to the worn turf. Now Denver's perfect record will be challenged by the Browns, who have it 2nd down and 7. On this drive, Kevin Mack has carried the ball the last 5 plays.
But this is where the Broncos defense is toughest, with their back against the wall.
6 straight plays. Mack trying to pick his way. Simon Fletcher, Louis Wright on the tackle, and Rulon Jones. It'll be 3rd and 3.
In Cleveland, they talked this year about the change from Marty Ball to Bernie Ball, from the running game to the throwing game. But today, we've seen a lot of Marty Ball, a lot of the running game.
Mosley, the 38-year-old place kicker, picked up by the Browns in late season when their kicker Matt Barr was injured. Mosley cut earlier this season by the Redskins, acquired by Cleveland. Mosley has his mind in two places today, primarily here, of course, and then after this game we'll be rooting for his former teammates against the Giants.
He had a lot of thinking to do last week as he missed a sure field goal, a short one. There are those who question whether he's able to get that out of his mind. A pressure field goal here for Mosley, a chance to put his team in a tie.
It's only a 25-yard attempt. He kicked one from 29 in the second quarter. This would tie the game with 12 minutes plus remaining. Have to go back to the granddaddies to tell you stories about the excitement in this town, Cleveland, Ohio, back in '48 when the Indians won the pennant World Series. The younger kids don't remember that joy. Gene Lang, short of the 20. Major Everett made the tackle, number 39.
T.D. Hogarth right there with him, and that's one place that these special teams for the Browns have been shining today on coverage. They are flying down the field.
Denver's defense doing a solid job of stopping Cleveland from taking the lead after that impressive march by Kosar and the Browns. Game is tied at 13, 12 and a half minutes left. Lang into a crowd at the 23.
There is some monstrous hitting going on down there. Carl Big Daddy Hairston, number 78. The leader of that defense. He's the guy that keeps them pumped. Says he leads more by his performance than by hollering and yelling.
He knows of the Super Bowl experience with the Eagles, Super Bowl 15. Incomplete to Mobley. Chip Banks was close. He's the man, of course, who held out during the summer training period, didn't sign his contract until the first game with the Bears, hardly had any practice at all, and played against Chicago after making rather disparaging remarks about both the owner and the coach here in Cleveland.
Well, it's been a year of overcoming injuries, holdouts, missing players. They've done a lot of that here in Cleveland this year.
Third down and 6. That's going to be close. I don't think he got enough yardage.
He's short. He had to come back to that football as it was thrown low and away, and I don't think he's got the first down.
Chris Rockin securing him, and the punting team comes on. So on 4th and 1, Denver will have to give up the ball. Cube moving up, anticipating the wind will knock down Moran's punt. To the 41-yard line where Darren Como makes the tackle. Timeout, 10 minutes, 45 seconds left. Surfboard reminder that at Pasadena, the Super Bowl in 2 weeks. 10 minutes, 45 seconds left. Kosar is sacked at the 38, the first Bronco sack. Rulon Jones, Andre Townsend were there.
Sacks a big part of last week's win by both teams. 6 sacks by Denver on New England. Pressure on Easton, of course, the safety by that man, Rulon Jones, perhaps the biggest play of the game because it shut the door on New England. 9 sacks in the game by Cleveland's defense, but right now it's Kosar with the opportunity. 2nd and 13.
Every play so very precious. No room for error. Underneath to Brennan to the 49. 2 yards shy of a first down. Dennis Smith with a tackle.
Brennan is like that important 6th man off the bench, like Havlicek was for the Celtics. Marty Schottenheimer said, we don't think of big plays, we think of big play people. And Brian Brennan is the guy we go to in that kind of clutch situation.
Havlicek was a good example. He, of course, from Ohio State nearby and played at Boston where Brennan played. He was Doug Flutie's #1 target with Boston College.
He'll come to the sideline as there might be a run here as well as a pass. 3rd and short.
Mack doesn't make it at the 50. So the Bronco defense is tough on 4th and 1. And on comes the punting team for Cleveland.
But do you want to punt here? Do you want to go for it? I think they're going to go for it. I think Marty is saying, let's go for it.
Oh, boy, what a big decision that would be. If they don't make it, then Denver has the ball at the 50-yard line.
He's put the beef team, Dave Pazzulli. Pazzulli is on there. Pazzulli will be in the backfield.
Now, this may not be going for it. They may try to draw Denver offside. This is the situation where if you have a trick play to pull the other team offside, this might be it.
Well, let's give them a chance. There it is.
Yep.
Dropping back.
Cody Rison. Now, was he an eligible receiver? If he is the tight end uncovered, then that's against Denver.
Now, the one thing he is not allowed to do is deliberately move in such a way as to pull them off.
False start, number 63, simulating the start of a play.
It backfires.
4th down.
It worked last year when they tried it against the Giants. Great kick again by Gossett. Wilhite inside his 10, down at the 12.
He tripped. He lost his footing and tripped.
8 minutes, 34 seconds remain. Winder. No distraction there as the hit made after a short gain by Sam Clancy. The line judge ruled that that was a false start by Rison and thus the 5-yard penalty. Now, the tight end, the man on the end, can move. He can lift his hand. He can shift. And that's what Rison was, a tight end. That's why Schottenheimer was
so
angry. Out of the hands of Steve Watson as Frank Minifield made the play.
They call him Mini. He's a mini giant. Right there with the ball. Sticking a hand up inside. Elway. Tremendous heat on Elway. Has to throw it off balance. Anthony Griggs, 53 inside. And look at Minifield go inside on Watson to get his hands on that football and strip it away.
3rd and 9.
flag down. Oh, and that should be a penalty there against number 22, Felix Wright. Once the man goes down, you're not supposed to hit him, but it's going to be holding against Denver. So, against the wind, deep in your own end. The Broncos guilty of the foul, and Cleveland not called for this.
Offense, number 64, half the distance to the goal.
Well, he tried to avoid him. He
Trying to get off of him, but the critical mistake by Billy Bryant, the center, as he tried to make room for the quarterback draw, a play that Denver has used so effectively all year long. And there's Billy Bryant.
3rd and 15. Steve Sewell shy of the first down by about 2. McNeil at the 38, 45, and out of bounds at the 48. Cleveland's bench wanted a face mask. 44-yard punt, 10-yard return. Rick Dennison made the tackle.
It's right on the sideline, and you see Rick Dennison, number 55. Hard to tell whether he had the mask or the shoulder, but Bill Cowher, special teams coach, right there on the sideline, angry at the officials. He thought it was a face mask.
Cleveland has the ball. Just a couple of first downs away from at least a field goal. It's tied at 13, 6:40 left. Matt, incomplete. That is not a lateral, incomplete pass. Ricky Hundley for Denver on the play.
A lot of drop passes on this day. Mack taking his eye off of that ball, making a very simple mistake. Wanted to run with it before he caught it. We've seen drops on both sides of the line of scrimmage. Watch it as Kevin Mack decides to run before he catches this football. Watch him take his eye off the ball, look inside. You see him looking upfield? You got to catch the football first, Kev.
Draw play to Fontenot. He is to the Denver 48-yard line. 4 yards on the play. It appeared that Kosar changed the play at the line of scrimmage, and some say that what Merlin Hill changed 60–70% of his calls.
In some games, 70 to 80% of the first and second down calls will be adjusted on the line by Kosar, who's not afraid to audible. Very bright in his application of Lindy Infante's offense. You saw his numbers on the day. Right now, he's looking for some points. He doesn't care how he gets them.
Brian Brennan, he's got it.
seconds left. Cleveland leads by 7.
We just talked about big play people. A one-on-one battle with Dennis Smith. Dennis knows he's lost him there, tries to recover, and misses the football. And then Brennan quickly able to get around him and into the end zone.
Well, Brennan makes a remarkable recovery to find the ball, much less catch it, and then spin away from Smith for a 48-yard touchdown play.
What did we say about looking for big play people, not big plays?
And now it'll be up to John Elway with 5:43 left.
Critical mistake by Gene Lang. If he lets that football go, it gets into the end zone. I think he panicked, Dick. He covered it on the 2-yard line and forces Elway and the offense to start way back on the 1.5-yard line. There's enough roll to that ball if you let it go here and get out. It's Ken Bell, 35. Lang just trying to help in there. But Bell just if you let it go and cover it in the end zone, you get it at the 20. He panicked, I think. He's a rookie. He has not been in this kind of big game before, and he tried to cover it at the 1.5-yard line.
Elway to Winder to the 7, a gain of 5. Mark Mosley at 38, the oldest man on the field, but boy, young and hard on that one.
And he kicked another one of those knuckleballs. So hard to handle, it just came down there like a knuckler.
Mosley, who kicked his 300th career field goal in Cleveland's final game. One of only 4 to do that. Now it's Elway, 2nd and 5. Winder to the 9, where it will be 3rd and 3. Reggie Camp made the tackle.
Camp had a very big day last week against the Jets. Inside out pursuit to make that stop. Brings up a critical 3rd and 2.5 yards. That Cleveland defense getting tough down in the trenches.
Denver calls timeout. This game and this play of so much importance that Elway wants to make sure he's on the same track with his head coach. Going to be very close. It appeared with that last effort that Winder may have gotten the necessary yardage for a first down.
It's all in the mark now. Close enough to measure. The Browns are saying it's not there. Hanford Dixon signaling over to the sideline. You're short by a yard, but I think they'll bring in the markers to measure it. 4 minutes 11. Wasn't it 4 minutes and 11 seconds to go last week that Kosar found himself 10 points down?
That's right. He was 10 points down with 2 minutes to go. But they got the ball at that 4-minute-plus mark. It is Denver's ball for another 4 downs.
Well, they've done the first thing. The Broncos have done the first thing they had to do, which is to keep the drive alive. But you're a long ways away from that end zone. They need to get something going here. They need to get control back on the line of scrimmage. They need the kind of running that got them back into that game last week against New England.
First down and 88 yards to go. Boy, Winder hit a stone wall.
Anthony Briggs, number 53, one of the men there. He comes out of there with a handful of jersey. Or is that a towel? I guess it's a towel. Watch the hitting on the line of scrimmage as they bring Kenny Lanier, big dog 76, into trap, and Anthony Griggs, number 53, met Sammy Winder right in the hole.
Winder didn't hit a Brown, he hit a Brown stone. 2nd and 7. 3:23 left. Elway's got some running room and dives out to the 26-yard line. An 11-yard gain. Clock continues to run. Cleveland 20, Denver 13 on a dramatic 48-yard touchdown pass from Kosar to Brian Brennan.
We set it up at the beginning of the day. The pressure is on the quarterbacks, and here in this fourth quarter, Kosar has taken his team for the 7. Elway now, 2 first downs in this drive, but a long ways to the end zone.
Sewell. Oh, how did he hang on to it? Steve Sewell at the 48-yard line. Chris Rockins made the tackle with 2:29 left. 22 yards on the play, and now Denver has itself in good field position.
One of the things that will help Denver on this drive is that the wind has died down here in the fourth quarter, and Elway is no longer throwing against that hard wind.
It's complete at the 40-yard line to Steve Watson. First down, Denver. 1 minute 59 seconds left. Timeout. Going deep. And the closest man was Ray Ellis of the Browns. Vance Johnson was the target. .152 remain. Pazzulli. Timeout, Denver. Pazzulli's sack makes it 3rd down, 18 for Denver.
Realistically, they'll take both downs. Elway knows if he can't get it all in this down, he's going to try and get at least a part of it, and then go for it on 4th.
1 minute 47 seconds left.
And again, you have to ask the question, Dick Enberg, how much has that ankle injury to Elway taken out of those quick feet? We've seen him escape so many times during this season from that kind of rush. But on that play with the blitz from the outside, Pazzulli, they call him Glacier. He only moves a couple of feet a year, able to make the stop inside.
Complete to Clint Sampson, or Mark Jackson it was. Mark Jackson, who had a couple of drops earlier. Jackson has a first down. Clock is running.
Dick, Watson in motion that time. The ball was snapped, actually hit Watson. Elway was lucky to get it.
That could have been disastrous. They'll just throw this one away so that they'll have time to collect their thoughts. So on 3rd and 18, Elway is able to drill a 25-yard pass to rookie Mark Jackson. And the drive and the hopes of Denver still alive.
Maybe we could go back and see that play. So close to disaster as that ball snapped in the shotgun. And Steve Watson, number 81, who'd come in motion. Watch him now as Watson goes across that ball off his hip. And Elway very quickly makes the adjustment and makes the big play downfield. What a critical play.
Well, that baseball training of Elway, those good quick hands, and then that rifle arm. 2nd and 10 at the 28. Screen to Sewell, has blockers. He's inside the 15-yard line. Didn't go out of bounds. Clock continues to run.
They'll quickly come to the line. A mistake, I think, by Sewell, who could have gotten out of bounds on that play to stop the clock. Elway's going to have to call it quickly here.
1 timeout left for Denver. Watson incomplete, covered by Minifield, trying to match up the tall Watson, 6'4", against the short Minifield, 5'9".
I think he actually caught that ball, but ended up out of bounds. A great catch, and you're absolutely right. Made it look like he was just going to try and throw the ball away. But watch him as they try and get the mismatch. Watson up, catches the football, but comes down out of bounds.
Cleveland 20, Denver 13. Final minute.
He'll run.
With all the photographers down at that end of the field, difficult to see the yard marker and the spot, but Elway alertly on 2nd down, getting out of bounds with 42 seconds left. Mike Johnson will be on his back as he leaves the field of play. Short of the 1st down at the 5, 3rd and 1. Touchdown, Mark Jackson. And now the pressure shifts to the bare foot of Rich Karlis to tie.
You put that load squarely on the shoulders of the big player in the big play situation. Elway leads the Broncos 98 yards to bring them within 1 point of tying this game.
Mark Jackson from Elway, culminating a 98-yard drive in 15 dramatic plays. And flags go down. It took Elway 5 minutes and 6 seconds to complete the drive of the game. 37 seconds remain for Kosar to get his team in field goal range.
A chance to watch that climatic play out of the shotgun. Look at the velocity on this ball by Elway. No chance to intercept that one. Low and away. And Vance Johnson goes down, or Jackson goes down. Mark Jackson goes down to pick that one up off the ground.
That's an interesting play, Bob Griese, because he sent Jackson in motion and he was going away, and then he cut back, as you can see, inside, and Elway, that was his primary target all the way.
Well, it did help him to get free of the tight man-to-man coverage. As you see Elway looking that way the entire time. What a great drive, Merlin. 98 yards, as you said.
Superb drive, and Elway has matched that touchdown by Kosar. At the far end of the field, the officials are meeting. Tom Jackson was involved in a melee down there just a few minutes ago, and they're trying to decide who did what down there.
Chuck Hepperling will make the announcement. Here he comes.
Let's go back and take a look at the touchdown right here. He's going to break to the inside as this receiver will clear out. Elway goes to him in the end zone. And a big play, a slant. They've been running it all day, but the good coverage has been there by the Browns. This time, Elway wins out. A big, big drive.
It was a double foul, and they wave it off. So the penalty flag, you can toss that away.
37 seconds, a similar situation to what Denver had right at the half when you saw Elway trying to work his way into field goal position. Much of it, of course, depending on what kind of foot Carlos can get into this ball. We mentioned that the winds have died down. Not hitting nearly as hard.
Cleveland can stop the clock twice. Going back to the drive, remember at 3rd and 2 back on the 12-yard line, Winder just made the first down, needed 2 and got 2 plus the length of the football. 3rd and 18. Elway was able to come up with a 25-yard pass to Jackson. And then finally the touchdown to Jackson to end that dramatic drive. And now Cleveland with a final minute chance. And they're going to get 5 yards on that kickoff.
If you had to choose one man to put back there to return this kickoff, the ice cube is not a bad choice on a day like today, in particular with bodies and muscles getting cold. His speed and acceleration particularly valuable.
Little guy caught 163 passes at Baylor, played in the USFL where Jim Kelly was his quarterback. Dallas 20, Houston 17, back in the American Football League days, the only overtime. Now Cleveland feels very much at home in overtime. Of course, last week's game against the Jets that they won in double overtime, but they had 2 other games during the regular year. Back to back, they beat Pittsburgh and Houston in overtime, and all 3 of the overtime wins came here at Cleveland Stadium. After the 5-yard penalty. And no time used. Down the middle to McNeil. Whoops. Whoops. McNeil at his own 4. And out of bounds at the 16-yard line. So just as Denver had trouble with Mosley's kickoff, Carlos able to cause some problems. And with 31 seconds left, will Kozar go for it here? Will Schottenheimer say, let's try to get 3? Or will he say, let's play it safe and go to overtime?
I think the one thing he'll do here is say, don't make any kind of mistake. Don't turn that ball over. Whether his decision is to go downfield or not, it's going to be with low-risk passes if that's the choice.
Bob Greasy, what do you think Schottenheimer will do?
Last week he kicked a field goal, and I agree with Merlin. I think what he's going to do is throw safe passes. You throw an interception here and you lose.
There's the safe pass to Fontenot. Simon Fletcher makes the tackle at the 19-yard line. And Cleveland spends its 2nd timeout after a 4-yard gain. Mosley tied it early in the 4th, and then a 48-yard pass from Kozar to Brennan gave Cleveland what appeared to be the winning touchdown, only to have Elway drive his team 98 yards to tie it. And now Cleveland says, we'll play you in overtime. We will stay here for the coin toss, which now becomes a critical non-player performance.
The overtime period in the playoffs.
Timeout, Denver, number 3.
Denver taking a timeout here, wanting to force in case, I guess, a bad snap is what they would hope for.
And so the final seconds of regulation. And we'll stay here as Chuck Everling will call both captains out for the toss of the coin. And that then becomes important. What team has the advantage in overtime? The team that wins the toss or the team that loses? It's not as lopsided as you may think. The team that gets the ball first does win more often, but it isn't a lopsided advantage.
All right, we're going to do this again. You're going to call it loud and clear in the air, please. Yes. He called ahead. And it's a tail. Take the ball. Which way? Stand there. Stand over on this side. Over
The
on this
Browns
side.
will get the ball.
Cleveland. When the toss will receive.
Denver will take the win. And Cleveland, with the advantage of getting the ball first. Put yourself in these quarterback shoes.
Well, the pressure is all on the quarterback, Stick, because possession is not everything. It's field position, because if the quarterback throws an interception or drops the ball on a fumble and he's in his own territory, the game is over. So every play is so critical. Making first downs, you're not in a hurry to get anywhere. The clock does not come into play. The only thing that is critical is no turnovers and making first downs.
Meanwhile, you fans who are staying with us, of course, for the conclusion of this game, the NFC Championship game has begun. We will keep you immediately in tune of any developments at Giant Stadium. Carlos's kick is short to McNeil at the 15. And he is drilled at the 30-yard line by Ken Woodard. 15 yards on the return. Center stage, Bernie Kosar. Young man from the Youngstown, Ohio area, Boardman, Ohio, leading his Miami Hurricanes to the NCAA championship 3 years ago as a freshman. Now at 23, trying to get the Browns into their first Super Bowl. Looking for Ozzie Newsome. Couldn't find him, and Rulon Jones finds the quarterback again.
Great coverage by the Denver Bronco defense on that last play as Kosar looks left and right. He tried at one point to get the ball out to Ozzie, but Ozzie on the sideline just couldn't be seen. Looks like he kind of tucked himself in behind there as Dennis Smith was in the road between he and Kosar.
Gerald McNeil is in the game as a wide receiver. He is on the right side of the line. Little Gerald McNeil. First time we've seen him there. Could be a special play. He's going deep, but they throw underneath to Brennan. And he's out of bounds at the 37-yard line.
Dick, I think we're seeing McNeil in there because of that injury to Weathers. So they've got all their wide receivers on the field, and McNeil takes Weathers' place in the program.
The Giants, another franchise that has hungered for a Super Bowl experience. They've been away from the championship of the NFL longer than the Browns, whereas Washington and Denver at least has satisfied the palate of their fans recently. Cleveland and the Giants, it's been a long time coming. Big 3rd and 2. Fontenot wrapped up by Mecklenburg. Carl Mecklenburg.
He's short. Marty is going to play the odds here. Schottenheimer quickly sends his punting team onto the field, and Denver's defense responds with a big play on 3rd and 2, stopping Cleveland's run, forcing them to kick the ball.
Gerald Wilhite back inside the 20. Gossip's had a good day punting. This one is high, short. Wilhite, 21. And down at the 25, tackled by Felix Wright. 41-yard kick for Gossip. And now Denver and Elway have their opportunity in overtime. They'll talk about a lot of things tomorrow. One will be that great catch by Brennan that gave Cleveland the lead. Another will be Elway's drive of 98 yards. Another will be Denver scoring a touchdown when Cleveland had only 10 men on the field. Remember that back in the first half. Winder close to 5.
And of course that penalty that was called against the Browns when they were appearing to try and draw the Denver defense offside that Marty Schottenheimer was so upset about.
And instead of a first down, which Schottenheimer was looking for, they were penalized 5 yards and had to punt.
Denver going to the running game here. It's exactly as you said, Bob. They don't want to make the mistake. They want to control the football.
Mobley, a big catch for Mobley at the 50-yard line. And suddenly Elway's receivers are catching everything in sight.
Mobley came on late in the season. Denver has not really had a big pass-catching tight end since Riley Odoms. But Mobley has forced people to respect his ability to catch the football and then to run with it. That's a tough catch. He's now inside Cleveland territory.
22 yards on the play. Winder using the straight arm, nevertheless loses 2 or 3 yards. Frank Minifield got him out of bounds. Rich Karlis, his longest field goal this year, as you can see, 51. That's his longest ever. Second and 13. Schottenheimer sends in Mark Harper. Oh, Sam Clancy was the Cleveland Brown player in the middle of that screen, and he, the ex-basketball player, almost rebounded one.
You saw the basketball player in him exactly as he gathered himself to go up. Look how Elway has to loop it over the top and still was able to put some touch on that ball. Almost caught by Steve Sewell, who could, I think, have made some yardage had he kept his hands on that one.
11:48 left in the first overtime. 20-20. He's got some running room, but elects to throw, and there's Watson at the 23-yard line. Steve Watson off a scramble by Elway, and Denver is in field goal range. 27 yards on the play.
Elway, and it appeared that he came to run on this one, suddenly stopped, spotted a receiver downfield, and made a perfect throw. It's amazing how well he throws the ball on the run.
It's amazing how well Elway has played in the last 2 drives. The 82-yard drive, the 98-yard drive, Dick. And now this drive, it seems as if his confidence is at the top of its game. We highlighted him early and say how they react under pressure. Elway is certainly under pressure these last 2 drives.
And timeout will be called by the Cleveland Browns. Denver with the ball, a first down at the Cleveland 22. Winder getting 5 more. And of course, Cleveland hoping that that one player can come up with that one critical hit and jar the ball free. Suddenly as quiet in Cleveland Stadium at this moment as it has been the entire game. Winder, good play made by the penetrating linebacker Clay Matthews to stop him at the 15.
Bob Golick, excuse me, Dick, also at the bottom of that stack, got a good shot at Winder's legs to spin him around.
Third down, 3.5 to 4. Winder again, and he's just centering the ball for Karlis at the 15-yard line. This then will become about a 32-yard attempt, and it's all on the shoulders and the foot of Rich Karlis.
Of course, everyone last week thinking a sure field goal was going to take Cleveland out of that game early. Mosley missed what was an easy chip shot. I don't think Carlos is thinking about that right now. His concentration total as he prepares to try and end this game for the Broncos.
A game that brought out greatness on both sides ends on a 33-yard field goal by Rich Karlis. John Elway, and the Broncos are headed for Pasadena.